Have you ever just stopped and felt like you're stuck in some kind of loop? You know, that feeling that no matter what you try, different paths somehow lead you back to the exact same frustrating outcome? Well, it turns out what's driving those patterns isn't just bad luck, it's something much, much deeper. And today, we're going to unpack that hidden architect of your life so you can finally break the cycle. Let's dive in.
Now let that sink in for a second. That's a pretty radical idea, isn't it? It completely reframes the whole problem. It suggests that these patterns aren't just happening to you, but they're actually coming from you. And honestly, once you really get how that works, you won't be able to unsee it.
Okay, so first things first, let's actually identify this pattern. Take a moment and just think. Have you ever found yourself saying, why does this keep happening to me?
Maybe you see it in your finances. You know, you work so hard, you finally make some real progress, you feel like you're getting ahead, and then boom, something happens that just yanks you right back to where you started.
Or what about your career? Maybe you're moving forward, you even get that promotion, but you never quite seem to break through to that next level, the one you always expected for yourself. It's like there's an invisible ceiling.
And this is a big one for so many of us. Relationships. Things might start out amazing, full of promise, but then they end in that same familiar, disappointing way. It can be with different people in totally different situations, but somehow the result feels exactly the same.
After a while, it's so easy to feel like life is just a broken record. But here's the question that changes everything. What if the problem isn't external at all? What if the source of that repeating pattern is actually coming from inside you?
And that question, well, it brings us right to the heart of the issue. See, most of us try to fix these patterns on the surface, but the real cause is running so much deeper than that.
We tend to focus on these surface-level fixes, right? Working harder, trying a new budgeting app, just pushing for more. And hey, sometimes that works, for a little while. But the real driver behind the pattern is your underlying identity and all the subconscious expectations that come right along with it.
This is exactly why those temporary changes so often fail to stick. It's almost like a form of gravity. If your core identity, what you deeply, truly believe is normal for you, doesn't change, your actions and your results will just drift back to align with it. It's not about a lack of ability, it's a fundamental mismatch.
Just think about the story of someone who got a huge, life-changing raise. It should have changed everything for them, but slowly, over time, their spending just crept up in ways that perfectly canceled out all that extra income. Why would that happen? It's not because they were careless. It's because their internal expectation, their identity of what their financial life is supposed to look like, hadn't shifted one bit. Their behavior just adjusted to match that old, familiar identity.
So this really brings us to a critical moment of self-reflection. I want you to look at all the effort you're putting in. Are you just trying to force new actions while unconsciously being chained to an old identity that's constantly pulling you back? Okay, so let's really dig into this idea of identity, because it is the absolute foundation of what's happening. It is quite literally the architect of your reality. So here's how it actually works, and it's surprisingly simple when you lay it out. It all starts with your deep-seated beliefs, what you think you deserve, what you think is possible. Those beliefs form your identity. That identity then quietly filters every single decision you make, big and small. And of course, over time, those decisions add up to create the exact outcomes you keep seeing in your life.
So when we talk about identity, let's be clear. We're not talking about your personality or your job title. We're talking about the subconscious blueprint you hold for your life, what you expect to happen even when you're not consciously thinking about it.
And here's the really tricky part. Even if an outcome is super frustrating, if it's familiar, our brains can actually find a weird sense of comfort in it. Why? Because we know how it plays out. We know what to expect. Real growth, on the other hand, well, that introduces uncertainty, and our minds are basically wired to resist that unknown feeling. So apply this to your own life. Think about a recent choice you made, or maybe an opportunity you passed on. Was your decision really about being ready, or about the opportunity itself? Or was it about stepping into a version of yourself you hadn't fully accepted yet, and you chose the comfort of what you already knew instead?
Okay, so understanding that identity is the cause is a huge first step. But the real question is, how do you actually start to change it? Well, it all starts with one incredibly powerful moment of awareness.
This question, this right here, is your key. The next time you see that pattern pop up, that same old outcome, I just want you to pause and ask yourself this. What would I have to believe for this to keep happening? It immediately shifts your focus away from the external situation and points you directly to the internal belief that's driving the whole thing. Let's see how this plays out in real life.
Let's say your pattern is constantly putting off important financial decisions. You ask the question, and the answer that comes up might be a belief like, I'm not ready or smart enough to handle this. Or maybe you keep settling for jobs that are way beneath your potential. The hidden belief could be, this is really as good as it gets for someone like me. See how that question just cuts right to the root?
So, once you've identified that limiting belief, the next step isn't some huge, overwhelming thing. It's not about trying to force a new belief into your head, it's about creating new evidence. You just take one small, totally manageable action that directly contradicts the old identity. It's not about massive change overnight. Real identity change happens through the slow, steady accumulation of new proof.
And all of this leads to the ultimate takeaway. At the end of the day, your life isn't a reflection of what you want or what you hope for. It is a direct, undeniable reflection of what you expect. And those expectations are built from your identity. The real work isn't just doing more, it's becoming someone who naturally expects better for themselves.
The moment you understand the belief behind the pattern, you get the most important thing of all back. You get choice. The ability to pause, to question, and to take one small different step. And over time, those small steps create a whole new reality, one that you've built on purpose, not by default. So, I'll leave you with this thought. What belief will you start to challenge starting today?